Okay, this is a joint meeting of Warrant and Finance and School Committee for March 27, 2012. I have a opening statement, and then we'll get into the agenda. The primary purpose of this joint meeting of Warrant and Finance Committee and School Committee is to make recommendation regarding the school warrant articles for school budget year 2012-2013. These articles originated with the school committee as a set of proposed budget figures that were discussed in detail at school committee meetings on January 24th, February 14th, February 28th, and March 13th. This warrant was then formulated by the school committee and accepted by them on March 20th. All of these meetings were open to the public, with provision given to accommodate any comments, questions, or concerns offered. Those meetings were the proper time to present budgetary input to both the school committee and the Warrant and Finance Committee. At today's meeting, the Warrant and Finance Committee will for the first time be discussing these articles among ourselves, resolving any remaining questions with the assistance of the school committee, which is also in attendance, and then voting our recommendations, which will be duly recorded and placed on the school warrant for town meeting on Tuesday, April 10th. In order to most efficiently proceed with this task, I ask that any public comment be reserved until after all the votes have been registered. I would like to thank the school committee, my Warrant and Finance Committee colleagues, and the selectmen for their calm and professional conduct this budget season, helping to move it forward as well as it can. Are there any additional comments from either the school committee or the Warrant and Finance Committee? And I see that there's no selectmen here, so I'll disregard the selectmen portion of that. We good to go? Thank you. Okay, item one, roll call. We have quorum. We have 5 of our 6 members here tonight. So we are good for rolling into the meeting. Second item, approval of agenda. We want to approve the March 27 meeting agenda. The Warrant and Finance Committee has agendas sitting in front of them. Is there anything that you want to add?
I'll second.
It's been moved and second to approve the agenda as written, I believe is what you were intending. Any discussion on that? All in favor? 5-0. Okay, there are no minutes to approve. There is no unfinished business. Under new business, did the opening remarks, took that slightly out of order apparently. Going into item 2, school warrant discussion and recommendation. What I'd like to do here is pick up the draft warrant that we have that was approved on the 20th, move into Article 2, accept a motion on that, and then open discussion. I believe there will be some discussion on this one.
Move we approve Article 2.
Seconded.
On the articles, at least for the first set of articles, we're going to be having a dollar amount here. Do you want to go with the dollar amount that the school committee recommends to open our discussions?
Sure. $2,754,991.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded.
Regular instruction.
Seconded.
It has been moved and seconded to recommend approval of Article 2 for the amount of $2,754,991. We open discussion, and I know there will be some.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I just wanted to make a comment on this article. The school committee was of the understanding that an additional teacher was going to be needed because of increased enrollment for the kindergarten level. So we included a salary amount in the amount of $40,350 for that teacher. However, during the past few weeks, Principal Halliday has made some creative changes in teaching assignments, and in so doing, she's been able to cover all the classroom needs using the personnel that we currently have. So we no longer have need to include that amount in Article 2 under K-2 instruction. So in checking with Carleen, we find that the benefit package for this additional teacher was inadvertently omitted from the proposed budget. So the total amount of reduction from this article would be $40,350.
So the omission seems to be fortuitous in this particular, we would have either had to add that in, presumably at this time, if the teacher was going to be retained, or remove the salary.
This amount less the 40.
So
It needs to
the,
be subtracted from the 2.7.
needs to be
Right,
subtracted.
at
So
this
the-
time, because it was omitted.
Correct.
So I would recommend that you consider an amount of $2,714,641 for Article 2, rather than the amount originally proposed by the school committee.
Okay, so let's talk about the line item here. We're talking about page 10, looking at the spreadsheets that we talked about, and I'm seeing a salary amount for 4.8 teachers, and I guess we're going to 3.8, is that correct?
I think you think that we omitted that amount.
No.
We're reducing that amount because we
Understood.
don't need that teacher.
Right. So what I want to do is adjust/correct the line item from the budget, from the detail budget, and the whole purpose of having the computer here is so that it can do some ciphering for me and come up with the numbers that in theory are going to go into the warrant. So I want to be able to cross-check the numbers that we're going to be discussing in up to 3 warrant articles that are affected by this change. So that way, you're coming at this from your perspective, I'm coming at it from this perspective, and hopefully we'll be within $1 when it gets down to it. So, I'm seeing page 10, proposed fiscal year 13, teacher salaries, 4.8, do you not have?
It's 5.8, I think. I got it.
Well, right now, it says 4.8, at least from,
Ours is 5. The brown one says 5.8.
really? Okay.
5.8.
All right,
Are you
so.
looking at K to 12?
I'm looking at K to 12. Okay, so the
K to
dollar
2?
amount was, or at least I have, $286,214.
Correct.
So we need to subtract from that?
Yes.
All right, has anybody done that yet?
Yes.
286,214.
The amount you should come up with if you subtract that amount is $2,714,641.
Right, and that's going down a ways.
Yes.
So I'm going to subtract out from the 286,214, I'm going to subtract out 40350. And if I did it correctly, I'd probably get an answer, 286,214.
245, 964.
0. 245,864?
864, yep.
Okay. So I have 245,864.
Correct.
We going once, going twice on that one?
Yes.
Okay. And you say that that does represent 4.8 teachers?
Now it does. If you look on the brown sheet,
Okay.
page 10, it'll say 5.8.
Okay, so somehow or other
Add 4.8.
during the,
Should be 5.8.
yes, okay.
It's supposed to be 5.8.
So we're subtracting 40,000, but we're leaving the 5.8?
Yes.
Okay.
And the reason for that is that some of the folks, for K to 2, others are for grades 3 to 4, and we've done some shuffling between
Okay.
K and 4.
And, oh, by the way, I have to admire creative shuffling. 245,864. Okay, 245,864 is what's now in that line. Okay, so what I have for page 10 total now is 400,663.33, and that's exclusive of field trips.
Correct.
Okay, so coming down to page 23, which has the totals. The regular instruction line now says $1,043,769.69, and I understand that we're rounding to the nearest dollar here. 2,943,769. Okay, so the 2,714, I assume, is further down? Where's the 2,714 come from?
Remember, it's a few things. You know your color-coded sheet that you got last time?
Yep, well, the other items are the way they were.
Right, but they're in Article 2.
Right. So, okay, so let's go down to Article 2. Okay, so you're not actually looking at the intermediate total. So going down to Article 2, I have 2,714,640,68. And you're going for 641?
641, yep.
That's within a buck. I'm good with that. 2,714,641. 2,714,641. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor that we would need to amend.
I would amend that motion to read $2,714,641.
Okay.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded to amend the motion on the floor to $2,714,641.
Yep.
And I use the discussion time on this one to take a quick straw poll. We're good with that? Yes? Okay. Discussion having concluded, all in favor of approving the amendment to the motion to change it to $2,714,641. 5-0 on that. Okay, the amount has now been amended. We're now back to the original motion of recommending $2,714,641. All in favor?
So that's what warrant and finance
5-0, yes.
recommend.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes. So we're going to need to explain that on town floor. Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to Article 3. To see what sum the town of Acton will authorize the school committee to expend for special education. School committee recommends $1,028,486.
I will make a motion to accept the school committee's recommendation of $1,028,486.
Second.
I'll second.
If you don't mind, I'll modify the phraseology to just use the dollar amount as opposed to referring to the school committee
Yep, that's fine.
recommendation. Okay. It's been moved and seconded to recommend the amount of $1,028,486 for Article 3. The floor is open for discussion. I don't think there's any quibble about this one. That is a number that I had previously agreed with. What I actually have is $1,028,487.30. And all of these things are rounded to a buck, so we're good with that.
Just my comment that next year, everything's gonna be rounded, so there won't be any pennies involved in them.
Well, in past budget years, sometimes there has been that, but possibly last year and definitely this year, we were playing with pennies.
Well, you do that for the IRS.
That's right.
Whole dollar amount, a whole dollar method, yeah. I've been playing with that. Okay, so no further discussion on that? All in favor of the motion to recommend $1,028,486 for Article 3, so signify. 5-0. Article 4, to see what sum the town of Acton will authorize the school committee to expend for career and technical education. School committee recommends 0. Do we have a motion?
Recommend the warrant and finance recommendation be 0.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded,
Who seconded? Was that Andy?
Andy, to recommend 0 for Article 4, Career and Technical Education. This one is on the floor. Any discussion? Can we get I've been sort of curious about this one on town floor in past years. What form does this actually take? I assume that there is some form of career and technical education that occurs. Does this have to do with some of the workshops that there's funding for in some of the various
I think it's
sections?
adult
Secondary,
education.
it's secondary education, which our budget is, we tuition our kids.
Once you tuition your students to Sanford, they count for the appropriation of career and technical education funding. It comes through various grants, including the Perkins grant, that supports the drafting program, that supports the IT program, that supports the CNA program. So it's all counted.
So it's there, but it's already funded elsewhere. Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Okay, we're going to vote on this one now. We have a motion on the floor to recommend zero funding for Article 4, Career and Technical Education. All in favor? 5-0. Thank you. Moving on to Article 6. Oh, excuse me.
Article.
That was 4, we're going to 5. Thank you very much. It's those big numbers that get me. Okay, moving on to Article 5, to see what sum the town of Acton will authorize the school committee to expend for other instruction. School committee recommends $42,277.
I'll make a motion to recommend $42,277.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend a approval of this article for $42,277. The motion is on the floor. Any discussion? Okay, and looking at 5, I had already gone through these numbers. These are all the same as the ones that we had talked about at the workshop. We'll get down a little bit further down. I think the next one that's going to be affected is 14 and 15. So anyway, yeah, 42,277 is what I'm coming up with from the detail items that we talked about. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to recommend $42,277 for other instruction, Article 5? 5-0. Motion passes. Article 6, to see what sum the town of Acton will authorize the school committee to expend for student and staff support. Looking for motion.
Move, we recommend $309,037.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend $309,037 for Article 6, student and staff support. Motion is on the floor. Any discussion? 3 to 9. Okay, I've got $309,036.84. So I'm good with that. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to recommend $309,037 for Article 6, student and staff support? 5-0, the article passes, or the motion passes, excuse me. Article 7, to see what sum the town of Acton will authorize the school committee to expend for system administration. School committee recommends $216,361. Looking for a motion.
Move, we recommend $216,361.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend the sum of $216,361 for Article 7, System Administration. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
When this line was put together, the school committee had included a stipend of $6,400. It was put in because of the unusual year that we had this year with our superintendent becoming ill shortly after she came on board, and then a string of unusual and unfortunate events. And because of that, our principal had really assumed a lot of responsibilities that she normally wouldn't be expected to do. So the second reason that this was suggested was to try to find a way to bring our principal closer to a salary that's comparable with other elementary school principals in our immediate area of similar size and population. Since that time, our superintendent has come back. She has agreed to restoring the half-day that was taken away when Mr. Hadley was here, so that she'll be available more. And it doesn't seem likely that this stipended position will be needed for another year. So we would recommend to you that you might want to consider removing $6,400 from this particular line.
64.
$6,400, which would give you a total for this line of $209,961.
Was that for the principal's stipend?
It was gonna,
And is that under school administration, or was it in
Yeah, I'm
system?
pretty sure it's
that's,
under admin.
it's under system administration
Oh, it
because
is,
it was,
okay.
it was a stipend, it was a stipend as an assistant to the superintendent, so it
Okay.
was under the system
Okay, so it was
administration.
included in the board stipends, I believe?
Yes.
Yeah, it's
The
in the same
7,800?
line.
Okay, so we'd be going back to the 1,400 that started with from last year. Okay. I want to make comment on the other couple of amounts that you mentioned, the 2 to the 2.5, that's already in the budget. We won't be changing anything as a result of that, correct? That you've affirmed that that's what we want to do,
Yes.
yes? And also, you talked about increasing the principal's salary by, I think, like 5% or something along those lines. For the reasons given, that has been done. We're not going to be adjusting anything, and so the only thing that we're really acting on is this stipend
In
to
this
remove
line,
it. Okay,
correct.
thank you. Okay, so I'm going to $1,400 for fiscal year 13 on the board stipends on page 18. So we're going from 7,800 to 6,400 on that.
1,400.
Oh, excuse me, yep.
So it ended up
Correct.
being what was it again, 209?
209,961.
Okay, so jumping back here.
961?
209,961.
Oh, okay.
So we are on Article 7. So now I have 209,961 even. So I concur with the total for this article number, 209,961. So, any further discussion needed for this one?
I guess we need an amendment.
We do, yes. I just want to make sure we're good on the number. So 209,961?
I will amend the move, the motion to $209,961.
Seconded.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded to amend the amount of the motion to $209,961 for system administration, Article 7, and that was because of reduction, or actually removal of a $6,400 stipend that is now no longer deemed necessary. Any further discussion on that? Okay, all in favor of amending the motion to $209,961, so signify. Thank you. 5-0. Okay, the motion on the floor now is to recommend that Article 7 for system administration pass for the amount of $209,961. Any further discussion on the main motion? All in favor? Thank you. Okay, Article 8. Okay, so School administration, okay, that was system admin, all right. So, school administration, Article 8, to see what sum the town of Acton will authorize the school committee to expend for school administration. School committee recommends $150,146. Looking for motion.
Move we recommend $150,146.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend the amount of $150,146 for school administration. Article 8. Any discussion? Okay, I've got 150, 145, 62, so once again, I'm good with that one. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to recommend $150,146 for Article 8, School Administration, so signify. 5-0. Thank you. Article 9, to see what sum the town of Acton will authorize the school committee to expend for transportation and buses. The school committee recommends $249,440.
Make a motion to recommend $249,440.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend the amount of $249,440 for transportation and buses. Article 9. Is there any discussion on this one? Yes, sir.
I was just wondering, is this the first or second year of the new contract?
It's last year.
It's the last year? So you have to go for a new contract?
Last of 2 years?
Yeah.
And I think we're pretty fortunate to have this number given the cost of fuel.
Fuel alone, that's by itself.
So I think that complaining about this would
Good
be,
service.
yes.
Any further discussion? All in favor of approving the motion to recommend $249,440 for transportation and buses, Article 9, so signify. Thank you. Motion passes 5-0. Incidentally, if I have neglected to use that magic phrase for everything that we've done so far, ultimately, all of these articles, all these motions ultimately have passed 5-0. So there has been some modification based on adjustments since the 20th. Article 10, to see what sum the town of Acton will authorize the school committee to expend for facilities maintenance. School committee recommends $419,557.
Recommend $419,557.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend $419,557 for Article 10, Facilities Maintenance. This is on the floor for discussion. I think the only thing that really needs to be said here is, I believe that, Andy, you'll be abstaining from this one because you have a direct interest in facilities and maintenance.
That is correct.
Is there any further discussion? Okay. All in favor of the motion to recommend $419,557 for Article 10, Facilities Maintenance, so signify. Those opposed? Okay. So we have 4 in favor, none opposed, 1 abstaining, for reasons given. The article, or excuse me, the recommendation passes, the motion passes, 4-0. Article 10, to see what sum the town of Acton will authorize the school committee to expend for facilities maintenance.
No, we just did that one.
Sorry about that. I just made notations on the wrong article.
We can vote it again.
You know, it takes a community in more ways than one. Okay, now I think we're on the right track. Moving on.
Numbers mixing you up.
Article 11, to see what sum the town of Acton will authorize the school committee to expend for debt service and other commitments. School committee recommends 0.
Recommend 0.
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and recommended to recommend an amount of 0 for Article 11, debt service and other commitments. On the floor for discussion. Okay, we did have debt service very recently, but it's been retired, and we're moving on from that, too. Okay, all in favor of the motion to recommend 0 for debt service, Article 11, so signify. 5-0. Article 12, to see what sum the town of Acton will authorize the school committee to expend for all other expenditures. School committee recommends $131,864.
Recommend $131,864.
Second it.
This is primarily nutrition, in case somebody wonders.
It has been moved and seconded to recommend $131,864 for Article 12, all other expenditures. Is there any discussion for this? Let's see, number 12, where the heck is it? Yes, it is solely nutrition, from what I gather.
Yeah.
131,864 from the nutrition page. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to recommend $131,864, so signify. Thank you. Article 13, okay, so Articles 13 and 14 raise funds for the proposed school budget, and this is also where our discussion is going to get just a tad more esoteric. Article 13, to see what sum the municipality will appropriate for the total cost of funding public education from kindergarten to grade 12, as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act. Recommend for that, or at least from the EPS, $3,829,669. And to see what sum the municipality will raise as the municipality's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from kindergarten to grade 12, as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act in accordance with the Maine Revised Statutes, Title 20A, Section 15688. Recommend for that $3,397,078. The explanation for this item, such that it is this is the school administrative unit's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from kindergarten to grade 12, as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act, is the amount of money determined by state law to be the minimum amount that a municipality must raise in order to receive the full amount of state dollars. School committee recommends appropriate $3,829,669 and raise $3,397,078 as the municipality's contribution. Looking for a motion on this one. And I guess all we really need to address is the recommendation.
Recommend we appropriate $3,829,669 and raise $3,397,078 as the municipality's contribution.
Second?
It has been moved and seconded to appropriate $3,829,669 and raise $3,397,078 as the municipality's contribution. On the floor for copious discussion.
So we're going to adjust that by the teacher's salary and by the stipend that we are.
No, not till the next one.
That's
Oh,
gonna,
not till the next one.
Okay.
Okay.
3,829,669 is what I've got on the first one. And 397,077.70 is what I've got on the second one. So that is unchanged. Okay, yes, so I'm good with both of those numbers based on calculations from the not rounding anything. And this is based on calculations, I think it's worth mentioning where those come from. So my current understanding, and I think that does in fact match my previous understanding from last year, of where this particular number comes from. This first number comes from the state EPS total allocation at 97%. It's a spreadsheet. It's a number from a spreadsheet put out by the state. And we really have, I assume it's from numbers that we give them somehow or other, but
Kind of like what they allow, like they may not allow a librarian here because we only have 300, but, you know, or vice versa, that you can have a librarian, 0.5 librarian, but we only have 0.2. It just, they tell us what we should have because we have, you know,
Right, but
200
there's really-
children here.
of any of the numbers that
They
there's,
tell us.
we have any say in, this is really not one of those. It's whatever the state says it is.
Even if you didn't have any schools, this is what you'd be faced with.
So we have, that comes right from
We'll have
that.
to raise it.
That comes right from that spreadsheet, and the total amount as given as in the motion and as recommended by the school committee is what's on the spreadsheet, and there you have it. The second amount actually comes from the same spreadsheet. It's the state-adjusted required local share. It's just one column over. Rationale for that is largely similar to the first one. It's what the state says. If somebody messed it up, it's out of our hands, and there it
And
is.
they change it every year.
Yep. Any further discussion? It has been moved and seconded to appropriate 3 million, actually, before I move forward on this, the phraseology that is used here. I'd like to sort of jump back, if I may, to last year. I think we really only talked about the second number last year in the warrant article. And maybe going back 3 years, the warrant article really only talked about appropriating and raising funds. And so we had these two numbers. But in the last couple of years, we haven't really used the phrases appropriate and raise. Did that change
Yes.
according to what the state said from last year? It kind of changed, now it's changed back again?
Right, and the attorney wrote these articles up, so we have to write it that way.
Okay, so last year, we were talking about, this is number, what, 13B? Right, so last year, the first amount was really embedded in the article itself, and there was no voting on that. And the second amount was actually the recommendation that was put forth. So this year, we're going back a couple of years to older phraseology, and we're calling those raising and appropriating, according to those who professionally know way more than I do about this.
And also comment, if I could, Mr. Chairman, that,
Yes.
you know, we've run this wording by the auditor and law firm of Drummond Woodson, which is the recognized authority. They actually wrote most of the laws, and we're really confident with this wording.
Okay, very good, thank you. Okay, any more discussion? All in favor of the motion to appropriate $3,829,669 and raise $3,397,078 as the municipality's contribution? So signify. Thank you. 5-0, the motion passes. Okay, Article 14. This article requires a written ballot on town floor, but not so here. To see what sum the municipality will raise and appropriate in additional local funds recommend $1,407,490 that exceeds the state's essential programs and services allocation model by recommend $1,322,496 as required to fund the budget recommended by the school committee. The school committee recommends $1,407,490 for additional local funds and gives the following reasons for exceeding the state's essential programs and services allocation model by $1,322,496. The essential programs and services allocation model does not fully support all the costs of the K-12 program. These funds support programming not included in the essential programs and services model. Explanation: the additional local funds are those locally raised funds over and above the school administrative unit's local contribution to the total cost of funding public education from kindergarten to grade 12, as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act, and local amounts raised for the annual payment of non-state funded debt service that will help achieve the municipality's budget for educational programs. Say that 3 times fast. Looking for a motion on this one.
You
Recommend
want to
what-
change the numbers first?
Well, we want to get that on the floor for discussion, and then we'll play games with that.
Recommend $1,407,490.
I'll second it.
Okay. It has been moved and seconded to recommend $1,407,490. On the floor for discussion.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
This is where the changes that were made previously in the other 2 articles will come in.
Okay.
The
So
rec-
what numbers do you have?
The recommendation would be $1,360,740.
Say that again, please.
$1,360,740. $360,740.
Okay, we did the 40,350, and then the 6,400, right?
Yes.
And then the 300?
No.
Is there a 300 difference there?
Now, one moment. Now, you're talking
Two
about...
figures up at the 2 figures up in that first column, up at the top.
Yeah, there's 2 numbers that
There's
we're
2
dealing
numbers.
with.
The first number would be changed to 1,360,740.
And I agree with that. I have 1,360,740.97.
And the
So I'm good
second
with
number that you see printed there as 1,322,496 would be changed to 1,275,746.
I agree with that as well. I've got 1,275,746.97.
Here, it's going to change again to that one. Right. So it's just the stipend and the teacher's salary, is that correct?
We change those, and this bottom line one
Let me
is,
see.
Well, this has to do with the net budget, so it's going to include both sets of changes that we've
What was
made.
that second number?
Second number is 1,275,746.
1,360,
746.
740.
Okay, and I'd like to discuss where that comes from as well.
Oh, okay.
So this one,
My math is way off or something.
that's why I wanted a spreadsheet. I didn't want to have to think tonight. if I could
Bring a
help it.
calculator, Nancy?
I do have a
I've
calculator.
got a.
The other,
Good luck.
That's fine.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Longhand.
the school committee also, I think, included in that figure is an amount that the school committee plans to move forward.
Judy?
What?
It's not in there.
It's not in there?
Well, yeah, you're talking about the anticipated revenues that might
Yeah.
increase?
We'll wait for that.
Yeah, no, the anticipated revenues that are here at the moment do not include any balances moved forward from prior year.
Yeah.
Do you want to-
Yes, don't put the hundred.
Do you want to discuss that at all here, or sort of?
We'll wait until we get to that article.
Okay.
Sorry.
So it's 1,360,740.
Well-
360,740.
If
Yes.
you're going to be changing that amount, which would change the anticipated revenues, that's going to change this number. So if we know this number is going to change, we may want to talk about it now, because we really can't go back to this article once we've cemented it.
Right.
Do you want to
We-
adjust the anticipated revenues, or do you not?
Well, we're going to vote on it at our next school committee meeting,
Okay.
so.
So if it hasn't really been nailed down from your perspective either, why don't we go with what we have now? And if you find that it has changed again by the time we hit town meeting, you can amend it on town floor if you so desire.
And it's, yeah.
Because right now, we're talking about things that really haven't, we're putting the cart
It
before the
would be an
horse here.
anticipated revenue. It
Right.
wouldn't be a,
And we don't need to know until we commit. It
Right,
is
and
just
that would
depending
be
on how the-
August or
and if we get
September or
more
something like that.
We won't need to know that until August.
So to be perhaps a little more clear, we're talking about amounts that the school may be putting forward from the current budget year that will help to defray taxes
Well, it's not
in the
this-
next
It's
year.
not this current, it's what the audit came up with.
it's,
Oh, really?
it's from the 2010,
2010,
2011
okay,
That year, because we're always working.
fund balance.
okay.
Like right now, we're heavy.
So an amount that may be pushed forward to, essentially to defray taxation, and maybe
Correct.
lower the tax rate a little bit than what it would otherwise be. And right now, it's perhaps a little more funny money than some of our
Right, but it doesn't
other
have anything to
anticipated
do with
revenues.
Article 14.
Okay. Right, because you're going to be doing something on town floor, potentially. Okay.
Hopefully.
Okay, thank you. Anyway, so what I have for, I'm calling these numbers here 14A and B, the two numbers. The first one is the net budget, which is essentially the gross budget minus the anticipated revenues that were previously discussed. And those are, what, $497,591 is the anticipated revenues. Now, right, okay, so I don't really have any problems with this article. I think I have some with a future one, but I don't think it's going to change what we've got here. So I'm good with that, which is the gross budget of $4,757,818, or maybe $819, I think you guys have, which we'll be discussing in a moment, minus the anticipated revenues of $497,591. And that's where that number comes from. The 14 Baker is a bit more interesting. That actually comes from the gross budget minus yet another spreadsheet, or another number put out by the state, known as ED 279, page 2, operating allocation, I'm calling it operating allocation difference, to highly summarize a longer description on the paperwork. And frankly, Scarlett, I have no idea where that number comes from, just like either of the other two numbers that the state provides. But the bottom line is that state provides it, it's gospel, we use it, and we take our gross budget, subtract that out, and that's where 14B comes from, exceeding EPS by.
Shall I amend the recommendation?
I think it would be appropriate to do so. So we're good with the 1,367,40, I think, and the 1,275,746. So yes,
I
let's
would-
move forward with that.
Amend it to $1,360,740.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded to amend the motion on the floor. Now, on the floor for discussion on the amendment, I would like to point out, and I'm not sure what the intent here was, we recognize that there are two numbers, and the way this is written, we're talking about recommend A and recommend B for 14, but the recommendation is only for the first number. What was the intent here? How should this be phrased on town floor?
It's phrased just the way it is, because all we're raising and appropriating is the $1,360,740.
Okay, so it should be just that.
The other amount just is in there for factual information, that's how much it exceeds the,
Essential.
the essential
Okay,
services.
so we're going to be essentially voting in both of these numbers, but the one is going to go into the description of the warrant description, or actually, they'll both go into the warrant description, potentially. So you're saying that this 1275746 will show up nowhere on this article?
It'll show up, but you're not voting on it.
Understood, but it's part of the description. We're changing the article description with this motion,
Yes.
yes?
Yes, yes, you're changing
With
the
in fact,
description.
both of these numbers, potentially.
Right,
And then the recommendation will only be for the first number, as it is here.
correct.
So we're just sort of changing these numbers, but the rationale and how it's presented will be the same. Okay, so that is number 14, and just for giggles, yes, 1 second. Okay, that's what we did last year as well. Not that we were right last year, but it's, consistency is a wonderful thing. Okay. So it has been moved and seconded to change these two numbers wherever they may so appear. So in the description, we have one of each, and in the recommendation, we have just the first number, to change them respectively to $1,360,740, and that is actually the recommendation that we're going for, and the second number being $1,275,746. Any further discussion on that? Okay, all in favor of approving the amendment to the motion, signify by raising your hand. Thank you. Okay, we now are left with the motion to recommend, which I assume will be to recommend $1,407,490. because-
No.
Oh,
1,360.
thank you. I am on the right article, but I'm reading the typed print instead of what I wrote. But of course, we're just seeing if you're paying attention.
Hammer out.
And obviously, I'm not. Okay, so we're going for the amended motion to recommend $1,275,746. No.
Article 15.
You got one
I've got
number
the
to drop.
same number.
Go with the first number first. Then go with-
Thank you. Okay. Did you ever hear the phrase 3 times the charm? Okay. So in the original article, we've got the first of the two numbers. I now have the amended first of the two numbers. $1,360,740. Any dissent with that one? Yes. Okay, I was
Good
bound to
job,
get it
Paul.
eventually. Thank you. Okay. Any further discussion on that, now that I've phrased it properly?
I think we've got it.
Okay? Thank you. Okay, all in favor of the amended motion to recommend $1,360,740 for Article 14? 5-0. Thank you. That didn't have to be that difficult, did it?
No, it didn't.
Okay. Article 15. Let's see if we can make that the worst one of the bunch, shall we? Article 15, to see what sum the town of Acton will authorize the school committee to expend for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2012 and ending June 30, 2013, from the school administrative unit's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from kindergarten to grade 12, as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act, non-state funded school construction projects, additional local funds for school purposes under the Maine Revised Statutes, Title 20A, Section 15690, unexpended balances, tuition receipts, state subsidy, and other receipts for the support of schools. And Article 15 does summarize the proposed school budget. This is the gross budget. School committee recommends $5,302,159. Looking for a motion.
Recommend $5,302,159.
Do we have a second on that?
Second.
And
been-
again, I assume we lower it by the magic
Yes, we do.
number there.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend $5,302,159. And to hopefully not be totally remiss, I'm going to just finish off with the explanation at the bottom here. This article is a summary article and approves expenditures of the proposed budget of $5,302,159. This article authorizes the school committee to spend the money appropriated in the previous articles plus other revenues. The article does not raise any additional money. So we have a motion on the floor, and I'll point out that whatever number we come up with will also change this explanation at the bottom here.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I would suggest to you that new number will be $5,255,409.
Say it again, Julie.
$5,255,000, 5,255,409.
Okay.
Okay, I have 5,255,409.67, so I'm good with that. It's within the $1 range.
I will make an amended motion to $5,255,409.
Second.
Oh, excuse me, I'm going to call that out of order for the moment.
Okay.
Did we actually,
Yeah, we moved the first amount. Or I moved.
sorry, I retract my statement. It's been moved and seconded to amend, I'm getting punchy. It's been moved and seconded to amend the motion to $5,255,409. And is there any discussion on the floor? I'm assuming this is, of course, based on the two numbers that we reduced. And according to the spreadsheet, that is the correct number that I like as well. Any further discussion on the motion to amend the dollar amount? Seeing none. All in favor of the motion to amend the dollar amount to $5,255,409, so signify.
Can I just get a spelling error corrected where it says Article 15 summarizes the proposed school budget at the top there?
I was
There's
looking at
two
that.
R's. Can we get rid of that second R?
Sure.
Are you typing this up?
No, actually Jennifer has it, it's her warrant.
Yeah. Jennifer has to do it.
Well, we could get rid of the second R, but we would just have to be stating in our, at least as far as we're concerned, we would have to be stating that as part of our recommendation, oh, by the way, get rid of the second R, but it would still be there. Because all we can really affect, as far as I know,
School-related articles, they should be spelled correctly, and that's just the way I.
I might expand that statement to say when we present pretty darn near much anything, but that's, yes.
Just came from the attorney.
Attorneys have secretaries and spell check.
T's?
We have to change this figure in the explanation too.
Right,
Which figure?
in the explanation.
Yes.
Take out one M. Two R's.
We all set to vote?
No, you're not going to take out one M, you're going to take out one R, though. Okay, so I think we're good with discussion of the motion on the floor. Yes?
Yep.
Okay, and again, that is going to be changing the explanation. Actually,
Yes.
is it?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Based on what we talked about before? Okay,
We won't be changing the explanation on the warrant, because the school is still putting, they've already voted on the 5,302,159, so that's gonna stay there at the top.
okay, so, and that's also true then of the one that we just did.
With the two two of them, they'll stay the same.
They
too.
will stay the same, and we're just going to be coming up,
You're coming up with,
We're coming up with a
We're just making a recommendation.
for the saves.
well, okay. And we did put forth the two amounts. So both of those amounts are going to be on the recommendation, or they are not? Because
One
my
amount.
understanding is that only the first one will be on there.
That's
The second
correct.
one will not.
The articles are gonna stay written just the way they are, with you guys making the recommendation
Right.
of the deductions.
So, but effectively, for the recommendation, we've only done the first number. So that second number that we talked about isn't going to be anywhere on town floor unless somebody chooses to bring it up. Okay,
We're gonna say that.
okay.
All right.
Okay, so, I believe we're about to vote on the motion on the floor, the main motion for $5,255,409, unless I screwed up again. Okay, all in favor, signify by raising your hand. Okay, 5-0. The motion passes. Okay, number 16. Articles 16 through 18. Oh, actually, we do have a 19. So, may we state, or that 19, 16 through 19 authorize expenditures? Does 19 fall into that, or does it not? So we're still saying, we would still say 16 through 18, recognizing that we couldn't change it anyway, at this point. Articles 16 through 18 authorize expenditure of grants and other receipts. Article 16, shall the school committee be authorized to expend such other sums as may be received from federal or state grants or programs or other sources during the fiscal year for school purposes, provided that such grants, programs, or other sources do not require the expenditure of other funds not previously appropriated. School committee recommends adoption of the article.
Recommend adoption of the article.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend adoption of the article. It is on the floor for discussion. Authorized to expend. Okay. I think I'm gonna need, just to make sure I don't miss something here, I think I'm gonna need to jump forward slightly, because we can't come back to this. Article 18, I got a little bit of a problem with the nutrition revenue, 65,000, and not including the other unanticipated revenue, or anticipated revenues. And it's been stated that, oh gee, that's covered in the earlier stuff. Is Article 16 where it's covered, or is it not? Because if it is, actually, I'm going to retract my question, because whatever the answer is, I don't think it's really going to affect my vote on Article 16. You know, we need this, it's going to happen, so I'll retract that question until we move a little further down. Any further discussion on Article 16? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion to adopt Article 16, so signify. 5-0, the motion to adopt to recommend adoption of Article 16 passes. Article 17, to see if the town of Acton will appropriate the receipt of certain federal and state grants and carry any previous balances for the following special revenue accounts. Those being Title 1A, Title 2A, local entitlement, and preschool. School committee recommends adoption of the article.
Move adoption of Article 17.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend adoption of Article 17. On the floor for discussion. The only comment I have on this one is that, and I recognize that from year to year, this does change according to what we have to carry forward. Last year, we did include Title II Delta, 2D, IID, and I assume that that just plain does not apply this year, correct? It's not an inadvertent omission, it just doesn't apply.
We don't get that anymore.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion to recommend adoption of the article, so signify. Thank you. Motion passes. Article 18, to see if the town of Acton will vote to appropriate the following revenues, balances carried, and fund transfers to fund the food service budget in addition to amounts raised by taxation for food services in the school operating budget. School nutrition revenues, $65,000. School committee recommends adoption of the article.
Move adoption of the article.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend adoption of the article. On the floor for discussion. This particular one, I'm going to drag out last year's article, which is phrased a bit differently, and I do believe that what we did last year applies here, and I'm hoping that somebody will be able to explain to me why it doesn't or shouldn't be like last year. Last year, we were talking about, see if the town will vote to appropriate the following revenues, balances carried in fund transfers to cover the expenditures appropriated in the previous articles, remaining funding required to be raised by taxation. It then proceeded to list the various numbers which aggregated, totaled the anticipated revenues, all sources. And that, of course, would be used to offset taxes. This year, all of those amounts, many of which do still apply here, in fact, the total dollar amount is more, have been stricken from the article, and we're really left with just the school nutrition revenues, which of course explains the phraseology change. But my question is, given that the anticipated revenues are significantly higher than this, what would cause us to remove a portion of the anticipated revenues, but not all of them, from this article? And I understand that on Article 14, when talking about EPS funding, we are dealing with a net budget, so it's exclusive of these anticipated funds. But what I'm not understanding is why, and I'd still have to be able to get an explanation if we removed all of this and said, oh, it's all handled in Article 14. But the fact that it's only partially removed doubly causes me to question, why are we removing the anticipated revenues here? Because it looks to me like that means we will not be able to appropriate any of those revenues. I don't see them covered anywhere else.
Want to give it a shot?
Sure.
Try. First of all, it's complicated.
I understand that.
The
Going in.
ED 279 report.
Yes.
Includes in line 50, our amount of $3,397,077.
So we go to good old ED
Which is
279.
the amount that you have in Article 13. Included in that is the revenues that you're talking about.
Understood.
And the reason that the auditor and the Drummond Woodsum suggested that we word it this way this year is because it could have been construed last year that it was in there twice.
Okay. Is the $65,000 included in this number as well?
No.
No, not in the line.
Not in the
Article 13.
3,397,077?
That's why it's separately in Article 18.
So 3,397,077.
$65,000 is actually the money
The kids
that
pay.
you get, the kids pay.
Yes,
Over the year.
that's
Yep.
right.
Okay, so that's the state-adjusted required local share, which is the second number in Article 13, the municipality contribution. So going back to Article 13, looking at the phraseology. Okay, so see what sum the municipality will appropriate, there's that magic word, for the total cost of funding public education. Okay, so there's your anticipated funds that we're going to be appropriating. So I concur, thank you for that, that it is covered. And by that standard, yeah, it would have been discussed twice or appropriated twice. 2 is better than 0, I suppose, though, right? And the 65,000 is not in there.
It's not in that Article 13.
Okay. All right, so we're going from, just comparing the phraseology. Appropriate the following revenues, balances carried, and funds transfer to cover the expenditures to fund the food transfer budget. In addition to amounts raised by taxation, remaining funding required to be raised by taxation.
But I understand that it could be construed, like Mr. Powers said, that it could be construed as mentioning it twice in 2 separate articles if it's included. If it's
Agreed.
included here in Article
Agreed. I mean,
18.
if it is in that mystery number that the state provides, then yes, absolutely, it is true. Because we're talking about appropriating in Article in 13B, municipality contribution from that number. Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Okay. I'm looking at the wrong warrant. Okay, so Article 18. We have on the floor a recommendation of adoption of the article. Right. And the article itself, and we're not talking about a dollar amount here, the article itself references the $65,000, and that is the amount that we're talking about this year. So all in favor of the motion on the floor to recommend adoption of the article, so signify. Thank you. The motion passes. Okay. What we have before us at this time is warrant article to establish and transfer funds to Fuel Cost Stabilization Fund. Article 19, shall the Acton School Committee be authorized to establish a fuel cost stabilization fund under the authority of 20-A MRS Section 15008 and to transfer up to blank dollar amount to that fund from unexpended fund balances at the end of the 2011-2012 fiscal year. Municipal officers recommend, Warrant and Finance recommends. Statutory disclosure statement. The fuel cost stabilization fund balance is currently 0, and no funds have been expended in each of the 3 preceding years from the fund proposed to be established by this article. If this article is approved as written, the fuel cost stabilization fund balance will be blank dollar amount. Looking for a motion. And it really doesn't matter what the motion is at this point. We'll do something with it after we discuss.
Did the school board vote on this already? Okay.
The-
Move to approve, or move to recommend,
Yeah. What do we do with it? Is it it's dollar amounts? Okay, let's just go with approve and we'll
approve
play.
the article.
Okay. Move to, okay, do we have a second on that?
Yeah, seconded.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the article, to recommend approval of the article.
Mr. Chairman?
On the floor.
The
Yes,
school
ma'am.
committee would recommend putting in a figure of $10,000.
Now, we're
For
talking about that
establishing-
number for both of these.
For establishing the fuel,
Both places.
both places.
Okay.
So that you're recommending the transferring $10,000.
Up to $10,000, right?
From unexpended fund balances. So this would this conceivably come from the same place that the anticipated revenue
No.
stuff that we were talking about before? Or this would be from the current year? This would be from the 2011 year? Yes, from unexpended from the 2011, 2012, not from way back when. Okay, so I will point out, in case it's not totally obvious to viewers, that this is a warrant article that we have never previously seen before or on the warrant. So we're going to be trying to find out a little bit more about it. And that being the case, can anybody fill in some of the blanks on this one, other than the $10,000?
I'd be happy to try if you wish.
Thank you.
During the budget development deliberations, a concern was what's going to happen with the price of fuel. No one really had a good crystal ball to know what that would be. And we asked ourselves, what can we do to protect ourselves? Do we just stick in an astronomical number? Or do we play it cozy and hope that we're safe, whatever? We chose to plug in what we thought was a pretty logical number, but wanted to hedge our bet and suggest that out of whatever balance we have at the end of the year this year, we established this fund, which is kind of a new concept among school systems, and it amounts to essentially a contingency fund that can be used only for fuel in case, you know, there's a big war in the south, in the east, or whatever it is, and who knows what happens to the price of fuel. This would at least give us, in round figures, maybe a 50-cent a gallon cushion if we needed it. So this is essentially a contingency fund. It won't be spent unless you need it. And it can only come from a balance for this year. Since it's a new fund, there's no money that's been built up over the years.
And is it anticipated that there will be, even if unused, there will be more added in future years?
Probably. And I think it depends on what the social and economic conditions are in the world.
And how much we have for unexpended?
So I think it's a good contingency fund for you.
And we don't need to use the magic word appropriated because it's already been
Already
appropriated
there, you
there.
just set it aside.
It's there. So we're just playing games with
You
it
don't,
after
you
the
know,
fact.
if the price doesn't go up, you don't spend it. And this is all that it can be spent for. It can't be spent for anything else.
Okay. So I'm going to be looking for, actually, let's, is there any further discussion on this? Is there any other phraseology that needs to be? Actually, the phraseology we can't change,
I was
correct?
just going to suggest, if I could,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, that, again, we got this wording from our attorney,
Yep.
and I think they've been doing this for a few other school systems, but I'm not sure how many, not an awful lot, I'm sure, this year. So I think you're going to be a little bit ahead of the curve.
Okay,
The
thank you.
motion was to approve the article.
Approve the article. So we're going to need to amend, amend that motion to accommodate the $10,000. Because the $10,000 isn't even in there. So in our recommendation,
No, up to
Okay.
$10,000.
clarify, we have discussed, but it's not in the motion, we've discussed this $10,000 figure. If we do not modify our motion to include the $10,000 figure, I would say that we can't do anything with the description as it is, correct?
No, we just need to make a recommendation on the dollar amount.
Approve, okay, say approve it for the amount of,
Yeah.
Up to,
Correct.
and that way, if it still shows up blank on town floor, at least we'll have some numbers to fill
No,
in.
this one will be changed
This
because
will- this
both
will
of
have
you
it.
voted tonight.
Right.
So this one will be changed, we'll put it in the school board's
We can fill
recommendation.
that 10,000 in.
Yeah, and then we'll put it.
Okay, because the
we'll fill
school
in
board is going to
blanks.
be acting on this,
They voted earlier tonight.
oh, did they?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll put their recommendation in, and then your recommendation in.
Okay,
That's the only
well-
change there'll be.
Okay, so just for clarity from what I'm seeing in front of me here, I would suggest that we amend the current motion to say approval for the amount of $10,000.
$10,000.
And that way we cover all the bases of what we intend, and however it evolves to town floor, you know, our understanding is clear.
Yep.
Does that make sense? So, that being said, I'm looking for an amendment to this motion.
Would amend the motion to approval of the article in the amount of up to $10,000.
I'll second.
Seconded.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded to approve the article for an amount up to $10,000,
Includes all the changes we just made tonight.
and that is on the floor for discussion. Is there any further discussion on the amendment to the motion?
Makes sense to you?
Yeah.
All in favor of the amendment, so signify. Thank you.
Do you have copies of that?
No, wait a minute. Mr.
And
Chairman?
that should be it.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
We have something else that we'd just like to give you copies of that Carleen has put together. It's comparisons and includes all the final figures that you've agreed upon tonight.
Thank you. Thanks.
While she's passing it out, just a comment that
Thank you very much.
the one with the most print on it is just a revision of the sheet that you already had that does reflect those changes that you just made tonight. On the back side, it shows the comparisons based on those funds that you did, that you just approved tonight.
Okay.
Now, the other point I would like to make is that when all the dust settles and before you commit taxes, not if, but when the school system is able to move funds forward, then these figures on the back could be reduced. And you can do your own math and see that it's gonna come out pretty darn good. Now,
Right,
depending on how
meaning
much
that
you
the
can-
net budget for taxation purposes will potentially be less than
Right.
it is now.
So the anticipation on the part of the school committee is that it will, at an appropriate time before you commit taxes, be able to move some funds forward. Another reason for not doing it right now is playing a little bit close to the vest as far as protecting ourselves in case the legislature does something drastic in the next 2 weeks, and you're not shortchanging everything.
Never any
I guess my
guarantees
guess is
there.
that they're not gonna do much.
Stupid.
Yeah, my-
Nobody's safe when they're in session.
That is true. Any further discussion on the main motion to approve up to $10,000, recommend approval of this article for up to $10,000? All in favor of that motion, so signify. 5-0, the motion passes. That takes care of the warrant articles. Moving on to public questions and comments. Are there any?
Yeah, I just,
Yes, Ted.
just want to let you know the ballot is going to be different this year. They've added additional questions. Once we sign this warrant Friday night, the ballot did come in today from the same attorney. I just haven't seen it yet. But there are going to be more questions on the ballot this year than there have been in the past. Do you know if Article 19 is one of them?
Yes.
Okay, so that's one, but I think there's one or two others that are being added, so.
So the Article 19 that we just discussed isn't on town floor, it's actually at
Yes, it'll be on
the ballot,
Yeah.
balloting, town.
I haven't seen it. It just came in today, and she just told me that he had added some new questions, so I don't know what they are.
Not pertaining to school?
Yeah, just for the school. This is your vote. Yeah, your vote.
Is there going to be some,
So this is one, and what's the other one?
And the other one's just the general one that
yes or
says,
no?
do you approve the school budget?
Oh, okay.
So it's just those two.
Okay, so we're just adding this question then. That'll be the second.
is there going to be any additional explanation on 19? I mean, we have a statutory explanation, but is there a thought that perhaps a little bit more explanation to avoid misunderstanding might
I'm
help to
sure it would
prevent a
be
miscarriage of justice?
Be discussed at our school town meeting, on the floor, on the town floor.
But will that not be after
No,
the
our
balloting?
our town meeting for the school budget is the week before
Ah,
the
that's the
referendum.
10th, and
The
then,
10th.
and then we're talking about the school balloting 2 months or a month
On the
down the road.
17th.
Okay.
Validation, yeah.
Got it.
No.
Oh, you're talking, okay, so you're talking about the validation vote. Got it. Thank you. Okay, so if it's discussed on town floor, in theory, there will be no surprises at the polls. Okay. Notice it's in theory. Okay. Any other comments? Okay, moving on to other business. No other business.
Excuse ourselves, right?
Feel free. We've only got, I've really just got to announce 2 workshops, and we're going to be adjourning. The Warrant and Finance has 2 workshops coming up this week. Thursday, March 29th, is a workshop at 6:15 PM, Acton Town Hall. That is a joint workshop with the Board of Selectmen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was very helpful. Joint workshop with Board of Selectmen, second and final group of charitable organizations seeking funding. So that will be at 6:15, and it will run till something along the lines of
Midnight,
8
1
o'clock, something like that, or midnight, whichever.
And then Saturday morning at 9, right?
And then the second one is Saturday, March 31st, workshop, 9 a.m., Acton Town
bringing the
Hall.
donuts for that?
Joint workshop with Board of
what?
Selectmen. This is for the town department budget proposal review.
Are you
So
bringing the donuts?
we will be talking about
When you bring
the
lunch.
dollars, the town dollars. We're not talking about any warrant articles that are not budget-related. We will be talking about the numbers that go into the town warrant articles if they are budget-related. Okay, so that is Saturday, 9 a.m., and I'm sure it will be a delightful time. My suspicion is it'll run till 1 o'clock, something like that, 1 p.m., so maybe 4 hours, and I'm sure there will be a break or
Don't
two
go yet. It ain't
as
don't go yet.
necessary.
I'm not going yet.
I'm looking for an adjournment motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second it.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. Is there any discussion?
What time did you say, Ted?
Hearing no discussion.
Sit at a table.
All in favor?
Like last year where they had to
4-0.
sit at a table.
One abstain.
We are adjourned.